nagre-recover pa rin tayo dun sa back-to-back natin from Baguio to ASEAN to Taiwan, gano'n, at yung mga talks natin kahapon. But I felt may konting energy pa tayo bago babalik sa gym. Babalik sa gym, para naman. Yan, para naman, yan, action star. Baka yan na lang natin, career natin, just in case mapagod tayo dito sa political analysis. Pwede na tayo. Action star. Kontrabida. Di ba? Okay, speaking of wag magda or kontrabida, guys naman. Kamusta naman kayo dyan? Yeah, wassalamualaikum sa mga kaibigan natin joining us from the Middle East. Yan, Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. Salamat for joining us. By the way, nasa Singapore ata yung ating minamahal na Pangulo. Malapit na yata yung Grand Prix. Yan. Birthday boy! Yan. Happy birthday sa ating minamahal na Pangulo. Very hardworking president, on the move again. Kanina nakita ko dun sa Twitter feed ng ating mga kaibigan sa Singapore. Meron silang mga updates dun sa isang speech ng ating Pangulo, si President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. Ukol sa, of course, international affairs, business, investment. So we have a very proactive president, at least when it comes to dealing with the international community, dealing with the business sector, rebranding the Philippines, putting the Philippines on the map. Now, of course, last year, nung pumunta sa Singapore si Pangulong Marcos Jr. for the Grand Prix, dun sa kanyang birthday, of course, maraming tao nag-react. May mga nagsabi, well, the timing is not right kasi the inflation is high. At the same time naman, yung kabila naman, sinasabi nila, come on, give a guy a break. He had a difficult election year. In fairness naman, you could see naman si President Marcos Jr. was really going around working hard in terms of at least meeting people all across the country, one by one, etc. Hindi po madali mag-election, right? Whether you agree with the guy or not. So some were saying he needed a break. Now, remember, the other explanation also was that it was important for the president to be there in Singapore because he had a chance to meet, if I'm not mistaken, Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong. I think I saw also Balakrishnan, their former minister there. But the idea was there, this is a working birthday celebration, travel, and of course, on the sides, meron ka pang Grand Prix, Formula 1, etc. So that was the context of conversation. And not to mention, of course, last year, the president was also very busy in terms of rebranding the Philippines, making sure that after all of those digong years, barangay geopolitics, I love China, all of those kind of, alam niyo na this, that it was important for Philippines to have a statesman-like president, to do the diplomacy, to do the hard work. So there were all of those kinds of conversations, all right? I'll shout out din dyan kay Sir Alvin Sports, dyan naman sa YouTube. No, so there were a lot of discussions about that. But now, if you look at it, for me, the jury, the idea is each side had their own thing to say, right? Ako naman, I'm always somewhere in the middle in a sense that I don't want to jump into parties and debate right away. Tapos ng elections, eto na siya na yung presidente natin. So the idea is like, well, let's see what we get out of it. Now, the thing is, ang daming mga pledges na nakuha ng ating Pangulo, lampas sa $60 billion dun sa kanyang world travel, na ginawa. And for me, actually, it was very good that we had the president who went to the World Economic Forum, who visited our traditional allies and partners, laid down the foundation for closer security cooperation with Japan, with our traditional allies. But for me kasi, ang mahalaga yan, that's very, very important. Of course, pumunta rin siya sa China. That was his first state visit. And not to mention other ASEAN countries. Ang akin lang kasi is, importante din na makita natin na may one-to-one correspondence, may one-to-one correspondence, itong pledges of investments, itong very proactive traveling around the world, because of course mahalaga yung optics, of course mahalaga yung putting in the work, of course mahalaga yung meeting foreign leaders, mahalaga yung showing a better face of the Philippines, showing na hindi lang tayo hanggang tatay digong diplomacy lang. Ang tanong is, a year since all of this Grand Prix diplomacy, ang tanong is, are we seeing that being translated into actual investments? Because honestly, I have two concerns. one concern is some of the data that came out earlier this year. Ang nakita po natin is actually yung foreign direct investments. Hindi po ito yung hot money flow. Yung hot money flow, yung pasok ka sa stocks dito, labas ka sa stocks dyan. I mean, that's just hot money. Like, foreign direct investment kasi is yung gagawa ka ng isang pabrika sa ibang bansa. Kunyari, sabihin natin yung Intel company ng US, gagawa ng pabrika dyan sa Vietnam, gagawa ng mga, I don't know, tech products, or sabihin natin yung TSMC ng Taiwan, pupunta sa Arizona, gawa ng semiconductor factory. Yun yung foreign direct investment. So let's say yung Ford, pumunta sa Santa Rosa ulit sana, gagawa ng plants or at least assembly plan for Ford cars. Yun yung idea, di ba? Pagdating actually sa FDI, the numbers have not been very encouraging, to put it mildly. In fact, the earlier year-on-year, if I'm not mistaken, if not the quarterly, ilagay natin dyan sa baba mamaya link. Actually, parang bumaba pa yung FDI. So, I don't know what's the explanation there. But there has to be an explanation there in terms of, kasi nga, ang laki ng pledges. So, ang tanong ngayon is, are we gonna wait longer before these pledges come in? Or baka hindi gumagana yung current strategy natin? Or baka kulang pa rin? We need to double down on that, and it's not just about President Marcos Jr., it's also about the Department of Trade and Industry, it's about DFA and other agencies doing their job. Or is it still the fact na, not only we're facing very stiff competition from Vietnam, from Indonesia, and more established manufacturing bases like Thailand, dito sa ASEAN region, for instance, maybe it's also because after 6 years of Digong and all of that, the investors are still feeling their ways. They're still waiting to see ano ba talaga, may pag-asa ba tong Pilipinas? Is there a good place to invest? So, of course, wala tayong we should not have any illusions about foreign investors committing big money right away just because na-meet nila yung president ng Pilipinas at magandang speech niya. Of course, I understand that. We have to be realistic about our expectations. But at the same time, if the argument is kailangan mo mag-travel, kailangan mo manood ng Grand Prix Singapore para lang because you can get investment pledges, well, ang tanong is, what is the evidence to show that there is a direct correspondence between the two? Or baka naman we can improve our commercial and business diplomacy, right? To make sure na hindi lang hanggang good feels and good vibes, but actually we can get in more investments from abroad. So, yun nga yung point ko kung partisan lang kasi yung debate, yung parang ayaw mo kay BBM, so whatever gagawin niya, i-criticize mo lang at saka pagtatawanan mo, or dahil pro-government ka or anti-opposition ka, hate na hate mo yung liberals, basta kung anong gawin ng presidente, okay na. Yung ganyang klaseng diskurso, hopeless case ang Pilipinas pag hanggang dyan lang tayo. Kaya ako, para sa akin, sabi ko, let's look at the evidence. Let's look at the explanations from different camps. So for me, ang katotohanan is, evidence so far suggests that there has not been any substantial uptick in FDI investments in the Philippines. And from what I understand, there's still a lot of reservations about the Philippines, not only because of the politics in the country, but also because of structural problems. Napakamahal yung presyo ng electricity. Wala pa rin matinong infrastructure in many parts of the country, outside the big cities especially. There's also concerns about costs of utility costs like water costs, etc. So there are also concerns about absorption capacity. Do we have enough human capital, etc. So sectors like business process outsourcing, which were already powerful thanks to panon pa lang ni Arroyo, DTI Secretary Maros pa lang na lay down natin foundations. Okay, those sectors are doing pretty okay. Thank God yung artificial intelligence, etc. It's not ruining it. If anything, there was a report sa Washington Post that kung saan pinakita that actually dito sa Pilipinas yung back offices ng mga ChatGPT 3 type of companies, no? A lot of coding, programming is actually done in the Philippines. I have friends who are computer scientists who are also telling me a lot about a lot of big tech companies having their back offices here. So that, you cannot attribute that to BBM or Digong or even Aquino. This goes back 10, 20, 30 years ago, no? When we laid down the foundations for the Philippines becoming a business process outsourcing, a back office kind of a superpower. But, katulad ng pinag-usapan natin na nasa Taiwan tayo the other day, no? And based on the discussions I've had with experts here in Taiwan, etc., ang kailangan kasi natin dito mga kameta is to level it up. To level it up. Na hindi tayo hanggang BPO, Hindi tayo hanggang assembly lang ng mga ibang cars or mga old model cars or mga low cost cars, I don't know, Vios, whatever. We want to be in a position whereby pwede tayo mag-ambisyon at pwede tayo mag-vie for more high-quality investments. So just to put things into context, may pinost tayong article kanina nung pagbisita ni Biden sa Vietnam. Well, ang Vietnam ay isang komunistang bansa. Ang Vietnam po ay kalaban ng Amerika dati. Ang Vietnam po ay marami din ng mga problema nila sa corruption and mga others. If you're really following what's happening, na-purged pa nga yung presidente nila recently, di ba? Malaking mga kanilang problema. Nevertheless, yung kasabay ng pagbisita ni Biden, doon sa Bangkok, that went hand in hand with the visits of top companies, executives from top companies, Intel, yung mga semiconductor companies, Boeing. So, hindi lang pumunta si Biden dyan para pag-usapan ng China, pag-usapan ng Russia, yung mga security, geopolitical issues, maritime security issues. But no, there was also a huge gathering of senior executives from very, very big companies. As I said, Boeing, Intel, semiconductor companies. Iba kasi hindi kayo familiar, kaya hindi ko na sasabihin yung mga pangalan. And Vietnam actually is also planning to build their own semiconductor industry na indigenous, no? Their own brand, katulad ng VinFast nila, right? Of course, it's not going to be easy, but it's not impossible. And the Vietnamese have shown a lot of ambition. So this is where ang concern ko is ayoko na maging ang mangyari sa Pilipinas is hanggang ano lang tayo, hanggang EDCA lang tayo, hanggang military, hanggang VFA lang tayo, pero walang economic component. Walang economic component. So, 100% nagdi-disagree tayo kay Senator Robin Hood Padilla na kung saan biniblame pa yung Amerika parang halos dun sa mga escalation na nangyayari. Yung idea na third party ang ating treaty ally. And by the way, sino bang nagbubuli sa atin? Yung idea na, wait lang, hello, like Whitson Reef, hello, like nangyari sa Reed Bank, I mean, like, Diyos ko naman, nung 2016, 17, 18, 19, yung mga militarization na ginawa nila, yung Sandy Cay issue. Alam mo ko yan because I've written hundreds of articles on these issues, alright? I know them by heart, right? I've written on these issues. I don't know nasan yung mga ibang tao dyan. But the point is, tama naman si Senator Robin Hood Padilla also in a sense that he didn't articulate exactly in that way, but the idea is that wag rin naman tayo na lean on kagad sa mga Amerikano para tulungan tayo dito sa China. Pag-isipan din natin na mabuti yan, and especially let's not give up on bilateral diplomacy. So again, I'm trying to be fair here. I'm not just gonna like say, you're totally wrong. And in fact, kanina, interestingly, si Defense Secretary Gibo Chodoro also had a very nuanced response. So on one hand, he pushed back against all of this, proxy war lang to, because that's complete nonsense. Hindi po proxy war nangyari sa West Philippines. Binubuli tayo, kulang yung kakayahan natin sa humingi tayong tulong sa mga allies natin. Ganon kasimple lang yan. Kasi kung tayo lang one-on-one sa China, hopeless case. Di ba? Mag-isip naman tayo, di ba? So wag mo naman sabihin ng proxy war kasi insulto yan sa ating bansa, insulto yan sa sovereign rights natin, insulto yan sa sense of agency natin. At the same time, sabi ni Gibo, at agree ako kay Gibo, may point din naman sila Senator Robin Padilla, among others, in a sense that wag rin naman tayo maging super dependent sa mga allies natin para depensa ng sarili natin. Eventually, we'll have to build our own capabilities. So my argument is we have to go even beyond that and say, dun sa tanong ng tulong ng aliado, A, we shouldn't overdepend on them. B, we should develop our own capacity. That's going to take some time. Marami tayong sinabi about the naval acquisitions, Philippine Navy. But C, again, this is what I'm not hearing as much is, saan yung mga big-ticket investments? We need big-ticket investments from top companies, from Japan, from US, from South Korea, from Australia, from Europe. Lahat ng mga bansa na yan na sobrang interesado, sobrang excited na makipag-war games sa atin, na magkakaroon ng access sa bases natin. Like, I see the point in that. But sana naman, hindi tayo hanggang Fortress Philippines. Sana naman hindi tayo maging hanggang military base lang ng ibang bansa. Hindi lang tayo maging host lang ng mga war games ng ibang bansa. There has to be an economic component. So going back to this, yung pagbisita ni Paolo Marcos Jr. abroad for commercial diplomacy, mahalaga yan because you need to give economic component dun sa ating revitalized ties sa ating traditional partners and allies. And beyond that, because kahapon lang nandun tayo sa isang maritime forum ng India-Philippines, so we're also looking at India. Now, of course, pinag-usapan natin with India, yung again, it should go more than that. Sana we can have more cooperation with India, which in fairness naman, we're moving in that direction in terms of startup companies, IT, yung Tata companies nila in terms of car manufacturing capabilities, space technology. Ayoko naman na tipong i-replace lang natin ng US with India. Hindi naman ganun sana, di ba? Hanggang customer lang tayo. Wag na sana ganun. So for me, I 100% agree with President Marcos Jr. that we need commercial diplomacy. But we also have to have realistic expectations na hindi lang yung bisita-bisita ka lang sa ibang bansa, darating na yung mga investors. You have to do your assignment. And you have to also have an evidence-based analysis of whether nag-work itong mga Grand Prix. I mean, honestly, and may pagkakulang ba yung DTI natin? And the president also has to have a proper blueprint to make sure yung mga concerns ng mga investors. Of course, sometimes investors, when they meet the Philippine president, most of them are going to be polite, nice, diplomatic, but you know, ipahati-hatik nila yung kanilang mga concerns sa infrastructure natin, sa corruption problems, etc. So, the president has to have a clear blueprint to deal with the structural issues that are keeping away the investors, right? High quality investors. Because otherwise, papunta silang lahat dyan sa Vietnam. Sa India, in fact, this month, magla-launch na yung iPhone 15. And for the very first time, made in India iPhone will also be launched. Right? Ang Vietnam po, isang napakalaking production site ng Samsung phones. Right? And then, yung Indonesia naman at Thailand are also vying for having more Tesla or at least EV car production sa kanila. So, ang tanong ko is, nasaan ang Pilipinas sa usapan yan? Right? Nasaan ang Pilipinas? So, very, very important talaga na meron tayong aggressive, proactive commercial diplomacy. So, I like what the president did, but wag naman natin i-exaggerate yung effect lang na travel lang. Hindi pwede yan. That has to be backed up by a blueprint, a national economic strategy kung saan we have a 3, 4, 5 years plan to really make the Philippines competitive and attractive. Now, ganito kasi, of course, maraming tayong mga problema na hindi kayang ayusin in 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. Alam din ng investors yan. So what the investors are looking at is signals that you're moving in the right direction and accordingly, they'll come in. So, for instance, hindi naman perfectong in Vietnam. I mean, for a lot of us who have been in Vietnam, alam natin marami rin problema sa Vietnam. As I said, they already have corruption issue. Their infrastructure is not there yet a la China level. They still don't have those massive infrastructure issues. May mga limitations in Vietnam in terms of absorption capacity, etc. But the investors are betting on Vietnam because at least the Vietnamese have sent some of the good signals. So even if hindi sila perfect, even if they're like 6 out of 10 pa lang, nagbe-bet na sila sa Vietnam dahil yung 6 out of 10 in Vietnam is still better than putting all your eggs in the Chinese basket. Or that 6 in Vietnam is still better than 5 in India, 4 in the Philippines, 5 in Indonesia, etc. Right? So, my point is, we have to have a realistic economic strategy blueprint which takes us from 4 to at least 6 or 7 so that we're competitive with Vietnam. And going from 4 to 5, 6, or 7, I think is doable within the next 2 or 3 years. Reaching 10, medyo malabo yan within 1 president or 2. Wag tayong maging ambisyoso masyado. But going from 4 to 6 or 7, do some of the basic low-hanging fruit, mid-hanging fruit, some of the good infrastructure projects here. In fairness naman, by 2025, some of the big infra projects like yung subway dito sa Manila should come on board. So, yun nga, you need a coordinated national economic strategy because honestly mga kameta, nasasayangan talaga ako. You know, conflicted ako when I go around the region. I mean, of course, Europe, US, Europe, mga ganun, hindi na sila, masyadong malayo na sa atin yun. So, ako, I'm always excited when I go, let's say, to Vietnam, Thailand, Taiwan, India, or Indonesia, yung mga katabi natin, because medyo kasabay natin mga yan, medyo peers natin yan, medyo competitors din natin mga yan, but they give us an idea about saan tayo. They give us an idea about how attractive and competitive we are. So sa isang banda, to be honest, the analyst in me, whatever, the social scientist in me, the political scientist in me, the political economist in me, whatever you want to call it, is excited when I go around because I'm seeing a lot of dynamism. I'm seeing a lot of movement. I'm seeing a lot of, uh, you know, growing confidence dito sa ASEAN. I'm seeing na more respect yung mas respeto yung mga investors sa atin. Now, ASEAN as a whole has more say in the international community. I'm also happy for India that finally India is being taken more and more seriously because they're the biggest country on earth by population. For a long time, they have been just in the shadow of China and dependent lang sa Russia for their defense industry. Now they're coming out. So there's a coming out party. There's a kind of a debut for most of us in the ASEAN region. So that really excites me because I see dynamism, I see movement. Like Vietnam, since 2014-15, every year halos or every other year, pumupunta ako sa Vietnam. Of course, except yung 2021-20 because of the pandemic. Pero bumalik tayo last year actually and this year, di ba? So more or less regularly pumupunta tayo sa, well, actually 2021 lang hindi ako pumunta sa Vietnam kasi andun ako 2020, andun ako last year, andun ako this year. So, ang akin lang kasi is, na-excite ako pag nakikita ko yung mga movements ng mga bansa na yan. Like parang dati, puro motorcycle lang sa Vietnam. Ngayon, puro mga German cars. Soon, maraming magkakaroon ng EV cars. Nakikita ko yung movement eh. I get excited for them. Even sa India, nakita ko yung infrastructure. So twice ako nag-Taj Mahal. And ang layo ng Taj Mahal actually, Agora, dun sa New Delhi. But the infrastructure is so good. So, kung 4 5 a.m., gising ka, pumunta ka sa car, pag gising mo 10 11 a.m., nandun ka na. Diretso lang. Sa sobrang ganda nung biyahe mo, yung parang NLEX nila all the way, pwede ka matulog. So, gising mo 10 11 a.m., nandun ka na, andun na yung Taj Mahal. Wow, let's go, di ba? So, ito yung mga mahihirap na bansa. I mean, India is still poorer than the Philippines by, I think, 30% per capita income. And Vietnam just overtook the Philippines during pandemic kasi napakagaling yung tatay digong natin. So they were poorer than us until the pandemic time on a per capita basis. Pero nilampasan tayo, but hindi rin naman sila ganun kalayo because nag-grow pa rin tayo. But yun nga, nakikita ko yung movement. So that really excites me. Pero bilang Pilipino, na-hurt din ako kasi parang napapag-iwanan talaga tayo eh. And that's what I'm saying. I appreciate the president's efforts to help with rebranding, have some proactive diplomacy. But diplomacy alone is not gonna convince the investors. You need to have a blueprint for structural reforms. Yun talagang kailangan natin dito eh. So, again, whether bumoto ka sa kanya or hindi, siya yung presidente natin for in the meantime, until 2028. So, I want him to succeed because his success will be the success of the country. And I mean it strictly in a sense of getting the high-quality investment to the Philippines. Kasi yun nga eh, and honestly, hindi ko alam saan yung mga oligarchs natin because some of our quote-unquote oligarchs are more and more globalizing, more and more competitive, and I think they will welcome more investments from abroad. But some of them, siguro gusto nila may monopoly pa rin sila, so I don't know how much competition they want from abroad, di ba? So you need a president who's strong and decisive. Again, hindi authoritarian, but strong and decisive, who can work with the good oligarchs, quote-unquote, and then push back against the other oligarchs who want to keep the Philippine economy closed and dominated, right, by just a few guys or a few conglomerates. Now, they're more interesting ones. I think some of the big companies or some of the big businessmen in the Philippines, I think the Aboitiz, Sabina Aboitiz, I think si Jaime Zubel, I think these are some of the more internationally oriented Filipino businessmen and billionaires who could be very, very essential to this kind of a long-term national economic strategy. But we have to get the ball rolling. We have to get the ball rolling. And I'm very frustrated because pag tinignan mo yung mga discussion sa Pilipinas, puro na lang military. Now, of course, mahalaga yan sa West Philippine Sea. But remember, pag hindi pa rin, ganito, pag malakas yung ekonomiya ng Pilipinas, pag mahalaga tayo sa global economy, pag mahalaga tayo sa production ng mga high-tech products, lalong-lalo tayo pwede mag-expect ng tulong galing sa ibang bansa. And the best example I can give you is this. Taiwan. Ang Taiwan po ay walang treaty alliance with the US anymore. Nawala na yun the time na nagkaroon ng One China policy noong 1970s and effectively formalized by the Taiwan Relations Act ng panahon ni Carter. Ang Taiwan po walang treaty alliance also with Japan or Australia. But because napakamahalaga ang Taiwan sa global semiconductor industry and because 92% of the semiconductors na high-end is made in Taiwan, pag inataking Taiwan, ang nagkaroon ng giyera sa Taiwan, patay yung world economy. Bugbog lahat ng mga top companies around the world. Apple, big tech companies in the US, lahat sila bugbog kasi lahat sila nagre-rely sa Taiwan. So because of economic importance of Taiwan, hindi lang because democracy in Taiwan and all of that, because of the economic importance of Taiwan, ang laki ng incentive na hindi magkakaroon ng giyera or sisiguraduhin na hindi sasakupin ng China ng Taiwan. Ganyang kahalaga ang Taiwan. So ang tanong ko sa Pilipinas is, yes, treaty ally na nga tayo, we're kind of building our military capabilities, but we will be an even more important country and magkakaroon ng even more stake ang ibang bansa sa sa pagtulong sa atin, sa pagprotekta ng ating soberanya if we become also an economically important country. We need to be both a geopolitically and geo-economically important country. Yun po ang talagang mahalaga dito. At to be honest, so far, I'm still not fully convinced we're doing what we need to do. I think some of the basics, cleaning up, correction is being done by the president. Happy birthday, President Marcos Jr. But definitely, we need to level this up. We need to take this to the next level. We need to take this to the next level. And I hope we have more and more people making this kind of analysis because yung mga ekonomista sa bansang yan may sariling mundo, yung mga, I don't know, foreign policy people may sariling mundo, yung mga journalists may... Hindi, kailangan natin ng isang comprehensive, multifaceted, multidimensional understanding of how to put the Philippines on the map. And again, yung passion natin, it comes both from a sense of opportunity, but also a big sense of frustration. A big sense of opportunity because we have a president right now who understands, at least to a certain degree, the cadence of globalization, understands the importance of winning over the international community. But I'm also frustrated in the sense that hindi tayo kasing bilis ng kailangan na, I mean, we're not moving as fast as we should, right? Because even if mas mabilis tayo malayo ngayon kaysa yung panahon ni tatay, na purong katatay-tatay lang ginagawa, the thing is, ang bilis yung mga kapitbahay natin. So there's a competition here. There's a competition here. So we have to be very, very careful about it. So again, mahalaga na pag-usapan yung presyo ng bigas. Of course, I understand that. We can have a separate discussion about subsidies for bigas. Sobrang mahalaga pag-usapan ng West Philippine Sea. Yes, of course, given na yan. Pero missing link pa rin sa akin yung discussion ng FDI, high-quality investments, semiconductors. That's the thing we want. So happy birthday to President Marcos Jr. And sana this year, hindi lang hanggang lang talk yan, but there has to be a blueprint. There has to be a blueprint, national economic strategy para talaga we get the FDI high quality investments. Kasi ang sarap ng feeling kung puntang ka abroad tapos may ganyang produkto na high-tech tapos made in Philippines, 'di ba? Ang sarap ng feeling pag ganun, 'di ba? At alam mo, hindi lang yung masarap ng feeling, alam mo, maraming Pilipino ang nag-benefit diyan. Maraming mga magagandang trabaho, no? Na-create dahil itong high-tech company ay nandito sa Pilipinas. And hopefully down the road, as more high-tech companies come, there's technology transfer, we can learn from them, and then we can build our own brand. Guess what? That's exactly what China did. Yung mga Geely nila, Jack nila, yung mga ganyan, yung BYD nila, sa tingin yung kinuha nila yung mga ganitong technology na, kinuha nila dun sa mga foreign investors. Once the Benz and BMWs and Volkswagens and General Motors came in, over time, they got all of their technologies legally. And sometimes maybe a little bit outside legally, right? So we need to do that. We need to move there. Hindi hanggang lang tayo, hanggang EDCA, hanggang West Philippine Sea, Mars. Mahalagang mga yan. But we have to go beyond that. All right? So on that note, thank you very much. Happy birthday sa ating Pangulo. I hope he's enjoying his trip to Singapore. And I look forward to hearing more about our national economic strategy. And dapat pag-aralan natin mabuti. Kamustang DTI, Department of Trade and Industry? Is our secretary doing enough? What should be done? What should we level up? Are they talking to the right people? Tayo kasi, nakakausap tayo ng mga top advisors ng mga ibang bansa na medyo successful. I'm yet to talk to yung mga top advisors ng kasalukuyan na So, let's see. In the meantime, I'm just gonna go around, gather ideas, build networks, and spread the message. Yun pong hindi pinag-usapan eh. Di ko nakikita sa media, di ko nakikita sa social media. Talaga mapag-iwanan talaga tayo kung hanggang dito lang yung level of discussion natin. Hanggang maharli ka fan, hate mo, love mo. Okay, confidential funds, sige, isang issue malagyan, pinag-usapan na namin kahapon yan. Kaya, or, but we need to level up, guys. We need to level up. Because, alam mo, pag we get the right investments and all, kahit yung mga senador natin hanggang ano-ano lang, okay lang yan. The velocity of investments and economic development alone will push our country in the right direction. And if our country economically develops, we'll have a bigger middle class, we'll have a more educated society, and hopefully over time, we have better leaders elected into office. On that note, thank you very much, mga kameta. God bless. Maraming salamat sa lahat ng mga sumasali sa atin. Alam ko na-appreciate niyo naman yung pinagsasabi natin. If someone told me 2, 3, 4 years ago na, Richard, you talk about semiconductors, globalization, etc., may excite ang mga kababayan natin. Ako, sabi ko, I don't know. Pero ngayon, nakikita ko na unti-unti, nagkakaroon ng interest sa mga ganitong issue. At unti-unti na, nasa-sense din ng tao na may kulang pa rin sa atin. May kulang. Kasi, di ba, pumunta tayo sa ibang bansa, kita mo, yung Nike mo, made in Vietnam, Samsung mo, made in Vietnam, yung itong high-tech na stuff mo, made in Thailand, itong Tesla, made in Indonesia, itong iPhone 15, made in India. Kasi isipin mo, well, nasaan ang Pilipinas? Di ba? Nasaan tayo? Bakit wala tayo dyan? Di ba? So, yun lang sinasabi natin. Alright? Thank you very much mga kameta. God bless and talk to you soon. Salamat po. Thank you soon.